Hello everyone, Strict Gryphon here, and welcome to part 36 of Let's Play Fire Emblem Requiem. So, a couple of my subscribers told me that there is one extra chapter with just some dialogue if I do Alicia mode. It should be only about 20 minutes long, they said. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. It's more story to uncover. And I apologize to everyone who's been waiting for this. I should have done this much sooner. Well, let's go! Extra, the Chronicle. Extra, the Chronicle. Galleon Port Town. Ah, it's good to be back after so long. Now, first things first. Let's pay the kid a visit. And of course, there she is. Hey! Miss Alicia? Oh, that's... wow. She's... huh. That's really cool, actually. I like that. You're getting bigger and bigger every year, I swear. What is it, 12 years old now? Yeah. But, what are you doing here? How did you find me? All these questions, Layla. Aren't you at all happy to just see me here? If not, then maybe I should just get going. No, I didn't mean it like that. Of course I'm happy to see you. Good. But you're usually away for much longer than this. I was just surprised is all. Yeah, you're right about that. My reason for coming back, to cut a long story short, is that I've got some important news to deliver to Her Majesty. But I figured I'd stop off here just to check up on you. I see. So, what's new with you? Well, I'm actually working on something quite big at the moment. Yeah? I'm making a chronicle of the events of the past beginning, from the rise of the old empire to now. Or at least I'm trying to, anyway. Really now? I'm not going to take credit for the whole idea myself, but it is something I think is important. A lot of the history of this era has been lost to time. We figured that out the hard way during the Dark War. People like Legato Rochelle. The Dark War, huh? That's a nice name for it. The people of the world might not have been so vulnerable to the plans if they had known more about them. As Lord Raiden said to me, if we could understand what made the villains of our past, we might be able to stop others, or ourselves from going down the same paths in the future. That sounds very like him. And it's not a bad idea, either. You think so, too? And that shouldn't just apply to our villains, I think. There were a lot of people on the good side of both the Great War and the Dark War, and yet their stories may never be known. You can't go making martyrs or painting everyone as heroes, though. Of course not. But there are those that are worthy of those titles. Sorry. Take Lord Ash, for example. He might have been a true hero, but he deserves to be remembered by the people of Emir going forward. At least a little, don't you think? Yet people outside of Ulva might not even know who he was. I don't think that's what Ash would have wanted, Layla. He came back to civilization to be with his family again. He didn't care much for anyone else's recognition of who he was. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Alicia. It's no big deal. So, anyway, my question is, why are you the one to do this? Lord Raiden seems much better suited to the job than you. He has been around much longer. He even experienced some of the events of the past for himself. A young mind like yours will be able to interpret people's accounts with less bias than mine, he said. What's more, I'm interested in what I'll find as well. Well, you're right, that is something big. So, is there anything I can do to help whilst I'm here? Now that you mention it, you could help me review the stuff I've got so far. But only if you want to. Come on, Layla, I'd never say no to you. Now, let's see what you've got, huh? Okay. Oh wow, what's going on here? So, kid, what am I doing here? Well, just to speak to the villagers. The information they'll give you goes chronologically as you move clockwise through them. When you're done, just talk to me. And what about all of your old friends over there? You can unlock their support conversations in the support log here if you want, I guess. Right. Fourth wall breaking! Alicia doesn't have a mini-portrait. Wow, those are some awesome stats. Wish I could have gotten those stats on my playthrough. That's nice. This is... oh wow, this is... yeah, this the fact that she's carrying these items just makes it seem all the more authentic. This is really well done. Very nice. Oh wow. This... holy shit! Oh, the whole crew is here! Oh my god! Oh, Val's only level 14, Lord. What's her resistance? Okay, 14. Oh, that's because that's what I set her base to. Okay. Poor Nala isn't promoted anymore. Let's see. Oh wow. Okay, this is sort of not canon. I take it. Can I visit these villages? No, I can't. Curious, this is the exact same map that was used in Fire Emblem 7. Oh look, there's even Layla right there. Wow. Interesting. A newly certified mage of Emir, currently trying to chronicle the history of the continent. Ah, Sacred Blaze even changed the dialogue for this version of Layla. That's really cool. What about Alicia here? A traveling sage and important figure of the continent. Layla's on and off mage partner. Oh, this is really good. Is this for everybody? I didn't really check everyone's stuff before, so I don't know if, okay, that hasn't been changed. I'm assuming all of these people haven't been, their descriptions haven't been changed then. Okay, well, let's go ahead and, we visit the vendor? Oh, we can. Are you serious? Seriously? Ruler crest for sale? Wow. Okay, this is... Sacred Blaze, why you tease me? That's just mean. Do they sell, stat boosters at the... There's an armory, isn't there? Yeah, wait, I thought there was an armory in this chapter. Maybe I'm mistaken. I wonder if I can use the arena. Let's take a look. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and just bring up some units so we can go ahead and talk to these guys. This should be sufficient. We'll bring these two up as well. Yeah, it's really cool to see everyone together like this. This is really cool. Is this done for purposes of support building? That's right. Okay, that's what Layla said. The fourth wall breaking. Okay, I get it. That's why all these characters are here, so you can do some support building. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's really cool, actually. Okay, oh, there's not much more we can do this chapter, or this turn. Let's, Oh, no, wait, end. Okay. We're good. So, Miss Alicia, how long do you think you'll stick around this time? I really can't give you a solid answer on that one. As long as it takes to get Valentine's answer, I guess. Her answer? What do you mean by that? I'm not really at liberty to divulge that, I'm afraid. Let's just say that the people of another continent want to talk to her and leave it at that. What is it, anyways? You miss me or something? It kind of hurts that you say that like it's a surprise. You were my first real tutor, you know. I'll always remember the first year we spent together training ourselves in the West. Look, we both knew we couldn't stay together forever like that. I said it to you myself that I could only take care of you for a while longer. After that first year, it was time that you found yourself a more compatible partner to better yourself with. But even still, I know, I get it, Layla. And the truth is, I always miss you when I'm gone. That's why, this time, I made sure you were the first person I visited. You will always be my first magic student. Miss Alicia. Aww. Oh my god, we can use the arena. I don't have any money, though. I suppose I could go sell some crap. But it's not really worth it. It's not a big deal. Alright, let's just move Alicia back up. Yeah, let's go ahead and do this talk now. We said clockwise order, so I'm just gonna start at the top and work your way around. Oh, do I just stand next to him to talk? Oh wait, no, I have to have Alicia talk to him, don't I? Okay. So, Layla, I've always known you to be obsessed with everything to do with magic, but why the sudden interest in history? It's not really that sudden, in my opinion. It's always been a secondary interest of mine, I'd say. Well, alright. But what you're planning to do is the work of a professional, you know. I guess I just didn't realize you were on this level. There's another reason why I kind of want to do this. Mr. Ulmer, the merchant, remember? He passed away this year. Oh, Layla, I'm sorry. I know that he was a good friend of yours. Yeah, he was. But I'm not really upset about it anymore, so it's okay. True to his words, he didn't let the idea of death weigh on him, even as his time grew shorter and shorter. The old man definitely was a tough one, that's for sure. Yet somehow he was still one of the kindest people around. But anyway, whilst we traveled together during the war, and even during these past 3 years, I learned a lot about the world and how it's changed over the years. He used to tell me all kinds of stories about how some things used to be and the experiences he had. I really learned a lot from him, and I think others should know his experiences as well. That I can agree with. For someone to live as long as he did in the world we lived in is a grand feat, no matter which way you look at it. Okay. So, this is the beginning, right? Yes, exactly. Mr. Ulmer told me a little about this part. For a long time, and it's pretty unclear how long, this continent was completely divided under small-time leaders. There was no peace back then. The people fought constantly to gain more land and resources, and the very idea of alliance was foreign to the people. The idea of that was later called the Era of Endless Wars. Of course, that name isn't to be taken literally, but it's not very far off either. I'm glad I wasn't around then. Me too. It must have been horrible. But anyway, around 40 years ago, one of these leaders, a man named Logan, or as we know him, the Emperor, would bring several leaders under his command in order to unify the land under one banner. It took some doing, but in just 5 years he was able to destroy or force out any who opposed him. At this point, he established himself as Emperor, and the commanders of his army were appointed as nobility, thus bringing about the rise of our noble houses, some of which have survived to this very day. And I imagine that this is when things started going downhill. In a matter of speaking, yes. Some say he was a corrupted man to begin with. Others think that the 5-year struggle changed him, but either way, he was not equipped to take care of the country in the way the people wanted. In order to maintain his control over the lands, he was willing to violently stop out anything that might threaten his rule of the continent. Threats, imprisonment, execution, you name it. It's no wonder why they came to be known as the Tyrant Emperor. Exactly. Discontent grew amongst the people of the land, and although nobody wanted the war to return to the land, they had to put a stop to him before they went too far. Some of the nobles closest to him begun plotting to have him killed, and instead place his brother, a man called Baldur Egarde, on the throne. Lord Brand's father? Yes, if my information is correct. The people saw him as the true hero that brought an end to the endless wars. His skill in battle was apparently unmatched by all, but he was also loyal to his brother, the Emperor, and as the plot could not go ahead in such a way, the rebels were caught and punished was exacted upon them all. But amongst those rebels were members of House Kane, and one member of that house was the Emperor's wife at that time, Lady Christina Kane. That couldn't have ended well, I'm guessing. No. After he had exacted punishment on the rebels from her house, he had her killed as well. And the son that they had disappeared from the world. This all sent the Emperor into something of a rage. And in the wake of it, several other nobles' houses were also rooted out and destroyed for having misgivings about his rule. Okay, sorry guys, my voice is starting to hurt from doing the high-pitched voices constantly. Let me take a drink really quick. Okay. I'm just gonna read my normal voice now, because I can't maintain those voices. After hearing all of that, I can see how the Great War had to come about at that point. Yep. Well, that about covers everything up to the beginning of the Great War, 33 years ago. Alright, let's end turn. So, on to the Great War, right? Yes. So, although the Emperor had thought that he'd culled the discontent amongst the people, that obviously wasn't the case. There were still several nobles, most of whom operated in the Northern Isles, plotting the end of the Emperor. But they did it in more localized ways. Instead of going straight for his head, they simply worked to turn those loyal to him away. Slowly but surely, the Emperor began unknowingly losing the trust of some of his most loyal subjects. So the people of the Northern Isles started it all, huh? Excuse me. Yes. Although their lands did not give them much in the way of military strength, the Isles were disjointed enough in the mainland to give them space to plot in secret. Sadly for them, the most loyal and powerful houses in the land at this time were not willing to give up their positions for the sake of rebellion just yet. It wasn't until 2 years later that a more influential noble house would step in and decide to join up with the rebels. And it all started when the three lost siblings of House Vamar arrived in Ulva seeking refuge. Lady Josephine, Lord Raiden, and Lady Florence, right? Correct. You see, only a few years prior to the previous leader of House Ulva, Carson Ulva had passed away and left his first son, and left it to his first son Richard. Unlike his father, Richard Ulva was not completely subservient to the man the Emperor had become. So upon hearing the plight of the three siblings, and taking them in, he took to action, with his first being to lift the bounty that had been put on their heads. Second action was to begin reaching out to those who had been plotting against the Emperor. He traveled to the Northern Isles to meet with the lords himself, and sent his associates out to the lords of the land that he felt might share his opinions. So the Great War was more of a political thing at this time. Honestly though, Valentine's father was clearly a more powerful man than I'd ever imagined him to be. Well, I never knew him, but yes, he probably was. That's why the name of Ulva carries so much weight in the lands. And speaking of Lady Valentine and her father, it was around in the end of this time, 28 years ago, that our very own Empress came into the world. Yeah, but little did she know of the world she was about to be brought into. Looks like Val has quite the heritage, huh? Well, now we know where you get it from. You two as well. I have to say, this is really well done. This story is really elaborate and really well done. I have to say, Sacred Blaze, good job on this. You put so much effort into this, and it shows. Although it's kind of hard for me to keep up with it all. This is like the obligatory mid-RPG information dump. And you have to go read it like 7 times before you make sense of it all. But let's keep going. Still got 5 more to do. Right, so what's next? During the next 4 years or so, the land would enter a state of civil war. Starting with Ulva, the nobles would begin raising their own private armies with those that they knew were loyal to them. As secretive as they tried to be, however, it was inevitable that someone would eventually be figured out. And they were before long. Some of the lesser noble houses lacked the courage to go on with the plans that had been laid out for them. And so they turned on their rebel forces, adding their doings to the Emperor's subjects. I guess back then they would have been called cowards. Most likely. But truthfully, could you really blame them for their actions? Perhaps not. Now, with their treachery exposed to the world, the nobles had no choice but to take action here or simply accept death. So they retaliated with force and pushed the Emperor's men out of the lands that they were governing for him. They took the lands they lived in and claimed them for their own, bringing about a land structure that formed the beginning of the way the world is now. After this, the rebels knew that there was no going back. War would be coming to the world once again, but the rebels did not want to be the ones to start the fight that they know they wouldn't win. They waited and waited to see what the Emperor would do at this point, and yet even as months passed, there was nothing. Or so it seemed. Right. On the surface, things looked fine, but internally, both the rebel lands and the Emperor's lands, things were falling apart at the seams. But, Miss Alicia? This is around the time I was born, I think. And I remember it quite well. Not quite the worst years of my life, but we were pretty close. From what I remember, the people simply lived in fear of the fact that a war was coming. I imagine it was the same elsewhere. Yes, exactly. But anyway, that was the end of the Civil War, as it were. It was around this time that Lord Ashe entered the world too. Alright, next one. And so we must be moving into the final part of the Great War now, right? Yes, exactly. The political and civil war were all just a preface to the actual war itself. It kicked off with the Emperor raising an overwhelmingly large army out of his lands. Before the fighting had even begun, some of the rebel forces backed off in terror and fled to the mountain ranges at the western edge of the continent. In order to ensure that the remaining rebel countries would have something of a way to cement a commitment to the cause, offerings and requests were made between the noble leaders. Unions, pledges, oaths, anything that could act as a contract was done. But unity was not enough to win the war for them. The Emperor's army was large and powerful enough to simultaneously fight against all of the rebel countries. For almost 3 years, battle after battle was fought, and just shortly before the rebel forces were on the verge of defeat, the Emperor was forced to return to his lands as internal rebellions threatened to destroy the Emirian capital. I'm not actually sure what exactly that was about, yet even with the Emperor's army falling back, the rebel countries had to retreat as well, as they were in no condition to fight any longer, even if their enemies were fleeing. I think I know what happened there. A group of rebels had captured the Emperor's second wife, Alana, and her son, who I guess would be Prince Isaac. They thought that they could get him to surrender by doing so, but that only served to make him even more angry. Their plan failed miserably, and they paid the ultimate price. Ah, you see, I didn't know that. I'll be sure to remember that for later. You're welcome. Now, continue on. Right. So just as the final year of the war was about to end, to everyone's surprise, the mighty northern country of Baron was torn apart from the inside in a mere matter of days. That was Legato's doing. We all should know that by now. There really isn't enough information to say how Legato wormed his way into the Emperor's ranks and commanded those troops to commit a massacre that occurred. But either way, the country, as strong as it was, couldn't stand a chance on its own. The attack itself was already completely unexpected by the people there in the first place, but even then, the harsh terrain prevented the nearby countries from sending help quickly enough to save them. And so the major player for the rebels was wiped out. The future was looking bleak for the rebels at this point. But at the same time, the conditions in the Empire grew worse and worse. Almost all the Empire's powerful supporters, barring those such as his brother, had deserted him. Yet even still, the final half-year of conflict raged between the rebels and the Emperor, which ended in victory for the rebels. Yes, the Emperor and Baldur Agarde were captured in battle, and Emperor Logan was sentenced to death. Being the great man that he was, Lord Richard and the others did not wish to see Lord Baldur dead, but he had different ideas in mind. So he too was executed alongside his brother there, and the war finally came to a real end. It would take some time before order could be restored, however. And that's about the time that Andre was born, right? How'd you know that? Well, either by coincidence or just dumb luck. It seems like the 3 children of Ulva were born just ahead of important chapters of history. That's funny, isn't it? I forgot who I talked to there. Hold on, let me save state. I forgot who it was I talked to. I think I did this one, right? Let's just check. Okay, yeah, we just did that one. Let's reload. This one here. We're now at the aftermath of the Great War. Oh, I need to take a drink again. This is so much talking. Much like the end of this war, it would take roughly 3 years to restore things to order, and for the world to shift, excuse me, into its new state. To shit into its new state. Sorry. Oh god, I'm sorry. I almost said that, didn't I? Okay, moving on. It started off with a summit meeting being held between noble leaders in the Great Hall in the free village of Train. 3 important decisions were made in the first one. First, the nobles would meet at the summit every year and share any major decisions that they were making. Right, of course. It's not perfect, but at least with a face-to-face, it's more difficult to lie about your intentions. Excuse me. Secondly, was deciding on how the land would be split between everyone. Some houses also swore their service to others so that the land wouldn't be completely divided, like during the era of the Endless Wars. The Emperor's main land and the north of the Central Plains were far too damaged by the war and were left unclaimed. Ulva took up positions in the south of the Central Plains, acting as a mediator between the nations. Megalar, with the largest army remaining and the most vassal houses under them, established themselves in the far east, bordering the Emirian Desert. Teomer claimed the fertile western and northwestern lands untouched by the war, and became a place of trade between Emir and other continents as time passed. The various houses of the Northern Isles banded together and formed a council, with the leader of House Selene, High Lord Varus at the head. What about the Western Confederation, then? There were some that called for them to surrender their lands over to the others because they had run away in the past, but in the end it was decided to leave them be, as they didn't have much land for themselves anyway. The nobles were also formed something of a union, and became the Western Confederation operating in the west, to southwest mountain range. And they were Guttersay, Arenia, Melise, and Shar. Yep, now on to the third decision. What was to be done with those loyal to the Emperor? Prisoners taken at the end of the war. There was a lot of debate, but in the end, those willing to cooperate were let go, although never given any land. Of course, though, nobody was willing to take their eyes off of them either. Especially those such as Lord Bran, the only known blood relative of the Emperor at the time. Okay. Next one? What's next, kid? Well, about 18 years ago is where we are now, right? From here on, I guess all that is really left to talk about is how the nation of Agardia rose up in the lands. As I said, Bran and the other 3 people had no land for themselves at this time. But it was during this time that an uprising known as the Royalist Rebellion would begin. It was known that there were large groups of people still choosing to live in the ruined cities in the old capital. But what wasn't known is that they had secretly been plotting to revive the Empire. As it turns out, the second son of the Emperor, Lord Isaac, had been found. Obviously, though, even with the heir to the throne, they had no means of fighting the newly established order of the world. Like the rebels before them, they had to make plots that would disrupt and weaken the power of those at the top. Only the Royalists were willing to go much further than the rebels ever had. The first move would be the assassination of noble leaders during the festival in Teomer. Among them was Lady Lorea's father, Ramsay Teomer. How horrible. The country was sent into a panic, and with such a young ruler at its head, the country was almost brought to its knees. The support of the other countries stopped it from doing so, but then their land started being targeted by the Royalists too. And not knowing where these Royalists were operating from, the threat could not easily be stopped. This was when Brandon Agarde made a name for himself. Having been informed of the location of the Royalists, he traveled to the Old Empire's lands and took down the key Royalist members, putting an end to the uprising. Yes, that's when I first met him. At the time, I saw him as my hero, my savior. But now I know that the real reason that he went on there on that day was actually because he was going to join them. True though that may be, the thing that matters is that he did change his mind, Miss Alicia. He showed that he had a heart. I get that. But it's still a difficult memory for me, now that I know the truth. If he had made the choice he intended to, I'd have lived in that hell for the rest of my days, most likely. Maybe we should move along. Following that event, Bran was invited to the annual meeting of lords, in which he boldly requested lands of his own. Many nobles were outraged at his request, but others were willing to allow him his request, Lady Lorea being forever grateful to him for avenging her father's death was the first. Others who had been affected by the rebellion also followed suit. Then, much to everyone's surprise, Lady Valentine's father also stood for him. It was said that he did this out of the immense respect he held for Bran's father. He even offered him part of his own lands, thus giving rise to the nation of Agardia in the southwest of the Central Plains. Over the years, most of the free folk and those who had been living in the Old Empire's lands migrated there, and soon enough the country began to thrive. And up until nearly 10 years before the Dark War, there would be another time of peace. What broke that peace? The re-emergence of Legato, the White Knight in Agardia. Many knew of the terrors that this man could unleash on the world, and for him to place himself at Bran's side only made people more fearful. They even called for him to face punishment, but Bran always defended him. Not knowing what might happen next, tension gripped the world. It only ended when Agardia declared war on Olva, and started the events of the Dark War. Legato. And last one. Wait a minute, I thought that was the end of it all. Oh, it is. Then what's all of this? Nothing? I thought I saw some stuff about Ash in here. Well, you see, after the end of the Dark War, Lady Valentine and Lord Raiden tried to look a little bit into how Ash got involved with all of this dark magic stuff. After a while, though, they gave up on it, but I tried to kind of pick up where they left off. Layla? I'm sorry, Miss Alicia. I know I shouldn't have, but did you find anything? Huh? I said, did you find anything? No, not much. Okay, maybe it was a bit more than that. Alright. Tell me what you've got then. What? Tell me. I'm actually curious, even though I should respect his secrets. Okay. Most people know that Lord Ash disappeared about 2 years before the war began. Yeah, I heard about that. But there's evidence to suggest that it wasn't when he first encountered the dark magic. Lord Raiden had been Lord Ash's magic tutor for a long time, but at some point Ash began to distance himself as a student. Eventually he broke away and started learning magic independently. Alright. I think that during this time he met Shell. What? But Shell was imprisoned? I don't think so. At Carme, Lady Josephine learned that Legato destroyed Baron in order to protect the fortress, probably so that he could preserve what laid underneath. How Legato came into contact with the dark magic, I'll never know. What we do know is that he couldn't have started the Dark Requiem alone. He needed a powerful mage. A mage who might despise the world enough to help him. So it was all to find Shell. Alright, so how does Ash come into this? Lord Ash was perhaps the only one who had some pity for Shell. I think that subconsciously that's because he did know Shell as a better man. I don't know, Layla. No, please, just hear me out. Shell's plans weren't the same as Legato's, but in the end he had to go along with it. The same way that Ash was never able to push the dark magic's hold from him. He had to accept it eventually. So, what are you saying? Lord Ash and Shell, they came across this dark magic together. Or maybe Shell taught him. I can't be sure, but either way, it led to those 2 years during which Ash disappeared from sight. That's when all this began. Layla. I'm not really sure about any of this, to be honest. And Lord Ash, Shell, and Legato left no evidence behind to suggest... confirm anything completely. That's why I've given up on it, too. Good. But, Layla, I want you to promise me that no matter what, you won't look into this any further. Understood? Yes, Master. I will say, though, I'm impressed. The information you've gathered, especially on these older parts of the continent's history, is substantial. Thank you, Miss Alicia. Okay. Almost done. I should probably start doing the voices again, just for the last bit of scene here. Let me take a drink first. Okay. Oh, sorry, I think I just bumped my microphone there. I hope it wasn't too loud. Okay, here we go. My thoughts exactly, kid. It's been a pretty long day, hasn't it? All that information that I'd logged didn't seem like as much when I was gathering it. I'm sorry that I asked you to go through all of that, just for me. I'm not complaining. The devotion you have to things you're interested in is part of your charm, you know. That's why I'm glad to have you not only as my student, but as my friend, Layla. Hee hee, thanks, Miss Alicia. Tomorrow, I leave for Olva. Where will you be off to? I'm not sure yet, but I think it might be time to head home for a little bit. I haven't seen my family in quite some time, after all. Then I guess we'll be parting ways again. Give your mother and sisters my regards when you see them. As for you and I, well, hopefully we'll be seeing each other again, before long. Of course, and I'll look forward to it. Tell Lady Valentine and the others that I'm doing well. Oh, and also tell her that I say congratulations. Congratulations? For what? You'll know what I mean. Anyway, see you around. Is that right? Okay, so very well done. Although I do want to offer a suggestion. I don't want to give the impression that I'm nitpicking or saying this was bad, because it certainly wasn't bad. This is very well done, but it is a lot of information to dump on the player at once. And I think having a map and maybe using some portraits to support the conversation would go a long way in helping them make sense of it the first time around. But yes, I do appreciate this, having this in the game, because it certainly clears up a lot of my questions that I had. Now, a large part of the story doesn't seem so confusing to me. So I do appreciate the effort that Sacred Blaze put into this. This is quite good. So, I hope you enjoyed me reading the Chronicles of Emir. I guess that's what I should call it. And until next time, you guys have a good one.